MFA updates
Swadika, and this is MFA Update, a weekly program that focuses on Thailand's international affairs and activities. I am Kimi or Kim Paniknisha Grairok, your host. Today we welcome Dr. ไกรจากธีรตยาคินัน He is the Counselor, Division of International Economic Policy, Department of International Economic Affairs. And we are talking about Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership or RCEP agreement.The
foreign affairs that matter. Special guests from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This is the MFA Updates.
So first, I would like to know what is Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership RCEP agreement and what is it important for Thailand?
Okay. So the RCEP agreement is a free trade agreement or FTA.that is supposed to be modern, comprehensive, high quality, and mutually beneficial to all its members.
Mm-hmm.
But first of all, let me tell you and the audience a little bit about free trade agreements or what are they. Free trade agreement or FTA members reduce trade barriers between one another so that they can trade and invest more. For example, under the RCEP agreement, China will have the obligation to reduce or eliminate tariffs on imported goods from Thailand and the other members and give market access to Thai service providers or investors as well as those from the other countries under the RCEP agreement. And just let me tell you a little bit what's special about RCEP. It is special because the RCEP agreement has 50 members.namely the 10 ASEAN member states plus dialogue partners such as Australia, China, Japan, New Zealand, and South Korea. Originally, India was part of the RCEP negotiations, but towards the end it withdrew because of domestic considerations. So otherwise, we would have an even bigger free trade agreement. Okay? Such a wide membership.makes RCEP the largest FTA in the world with the total GDP of $25.8 trillion, accounting for 30% of the global GDP and have the total trade value of $12.7 trillion, accounting for 27.4% of the global trade. So you can see that RCEP as a free trade agreement is very big.And it's going to have big economic impact on its members and also the world trade as well. Okay?
Yes.
So that's kind of the basic information on RCEP, which was started in 2013 and completed in 2020. And just because we are from Thailand, I just want to give the credit.that actually towards the end of the negotiation, it was Thailand in 2019 when we were the chair of RCEP who pushed very hard and basically got to the finish line and everyone could sign the agreement in 2020. And now 10 members, namely Brunei, Cambodia, Laos, PDR, Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam,that's the ASEAN side, and Australia, China, Japan, and New Zealand from the dialogue partner side have ratified the agreement. So now RCEP will enter into force for these 10 countries on the 1st of January next year. And, well, another thing I would like to share with you and the audience is that the RCEP agreement is very comprehensive. It's not just like it has 15 members and has like big GDP in total, but it has like 20 chapters that govern issues ranging from goods, services, intellectual properties, government procurement, investments, movement of natural persons, e-commerce, and trade remedies. And it also has a comparatively more flexible rules of origin that allow more extensive use of intermediate goods across the members And if I have time later, I will explain in more detail what these kind of more flexible rules origin can help Thai companies to integrate into the global value chains much better than what we have now. All right. And just to be contemporary, because Thailand is the APEC or Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation host for next year, and now we're having a big meeting in Phuket. The RCEP agreement is kind of a foundation for what APEC hopes to achieve in a medium term or long term, which is the free trade area of Asia Pacific or FTAP, FTAAT. So RCEP, together with maybe the CPTPP, if you know, is the trade agreement that Thailand is considering, would form a kind of building blocks for this free trade area of the Pacific. So that's kind of the basic information on the RCEP agreement that I hope that is not too technical. And I haven't answered your second question actually. So the RCEP agreement is very important to Thailand. That's your second part of the question, right? Because it will create this very big free trade area that provides opportunities for Thai companies, and not just Thai companies, but as well as Thai farmers as well, to sell more goods and services in the other 14 members, and also make imported goods and services from these 14 other members cheaper for Thai consumers.
Up next, how will the RCEP agreement benefit Thailand and its people?
Okay, it's to make it more, connected to our kind of day-to-day basis. So first of all, let me stress that normally, before the Thai government decide, or any government actually decide to negotiate any FTA, it has to conduct some kind of feasibility study, if you like, to see whether the overall impact of that FTA will have a net positive effect on the Thai economy or not. Okay, and such a study will also consider the impact if Thailand does not negotiate that FTA, but our trade rivals such as Malaysia or Vietnam do negotiate, because it's kind of an opportunity cost that we have to consider also if we kind of, behind the bandwagon, if you like. So the RCEP agreement should have a positive impact on the Thai economy from the study. In fact, a study by the TDRI, Thailand Development Research Institute, projected that over time, being part of RCEP would increase Thailand's GDP for about 4%. And Thai products such as fish, pineapple, processed food, fruit and vegetable, electronic parts, plastic and chemical, auto parts, and motorcycle would have greater market access to the other 14 RCEP members. Okay. What I mentioned earlier is that the RCEP agreement has comparatively more flexible rules of origin. So this is going to get a little bit technical. I'll try my best to give you example. But this is important. Because when the function of rule of origin is to restrict where components or parts of a product can be sourced from. So let's say Thailand, we assemble lots of cars in this country. We want to get car parts from wherever the cheapest or best quality. And if we want to benefit from an FTA, we want to be able to import different car parts from different countries. But normally, rules of origin would say, okay, you can only import car parts from a few places. And 60 or 70% of the components in your car has to be kind of sourced from locally, from Thailand. And because of that, the production cost is higher than otherwise you can source from everywhere. So if you look at RCEP, you have 15 countries,
yes,
right? And with the flexible rules of origin, it means that Thai producers can get components of their products from these 15 countries, wherever the cheapest, wherever the best quality that they can get their hands on, bring it to Thailand, reassemble it, and then sell at a lower price. Back to the RCEP or back to the world, right? And part of that is that Thai producers can also be part of this global value chain because companies or factories in other 14 countries, they can also source products or components from Thai producers because of these flexible rules of origin as well.
Yes.
So that's why I say that RCEP is quite special and it will allow Thai companies or Thai producers, entrepreneurs to integrate into the global value chains much more easily and more efficiently.
More choices and more chances.
Yeah, and that's just about goods. Okay, that's just about goods. But RCEP, like I mentioned earlier, is comprehensive and it covers services, investment as well. And under the RCEP agreement, the member countries have the obligation to open their markets for service providers or investors from the other 14 countries. Okay, so from the going outward part perspective, you can see that Thai companies, Thai service providers, including SMEs, can go out and enter services sectors in Australia or in New Zealand or in Japan, South Korea, much more easily than otherwise they could. And also because of that, you could have or you're likely to have more investors and services from the other 14 countries coming to Thailand and provide services and bring in money for the Thai economy as well. So that's kind of benefiting both ways, going out and looking in.
And looking at during this time for the COVID-19 pandemic, how does the RCEP agreement help Thailand's economic recovery from the COVID-19?
Okay. This is a very, very important question, and it's the focus of all governments, including the Thai government, that how can we bounce back or build back better, if you like, for the Thai economy. And RCEP will be part of the solutions. Like I mentioned earlier about the flexible or more flexible rules of origin, that would allow Thai producers, Thai companies to integrate into the global value chains much more easily and more efficiently. Why is that important? Because if you look at what COVID-19 has done to the global supply chain, if you heard about the supply chain constraints that, factories in Malaysia, also in Thailand and in Vietnam just have to shut down because of the increased number of cases. And because of that, and also before the pandemic, you have the trade war between the U.S. and China. That means multinational companies have to rethink and restructure their supply chains because one, they cannot rely on, supply chain from China only because if there is a fight between the U.S. and China, then they cannot import stuff from China cheaply anymore because tariff will go up.
Yes.
And also because of the risk that the COVID-19 pandemic and future outbreaks could disrupt the supply chains, right? So multinational companies, we have to look at, hey, can we move our supply chain from China to Thailand or to Vietnam or to Malaysia, right? And because of RCEP and the more flexible rules of origin, that just set up for Thai companies or Thai firms to be able to take the advantage of this restructuring of supply chain that's going on. And in addition to that, I mentioned that the RCEP agreement has a chapter on e-commerce.
Yes.
And we all now used to ordering meals or goods or services online.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the new normal. And because of the RCEP agreement chapter on e-commerce, that should govern and act as a basis for the 15 countries to work together to enhance e-commerce and make it more cheaply and freely traded among the countries. So that are the kind of the solutions that the RCEP agreement can provide for our economic recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay.
Yeah. And I have one last point I would like to make if we have time.
Okay.
The RCEP agreement is open for other countries to join. That's the point that I want to stress. Because I mentioned at the beginning that India actually withdrew towards the end of the negotiations. So normally, before an FTA between, let's say, Thailand and Chile or Peru, we will not have a provision that allows to any country to join later. Okay, but RCEP, because of India, and we still want India to join, we have a provision that allows other countries or economies to join. Okay, so you can have a scenario that RCEP is expanding in the future, and at the moment you have the UK, Canada, Chile, and Hong Kong that have expressed their interest in joining. Right. So this links back to the rule of origin as well. If you have more members, then you can be more efficient in sourcing your components of your products. Again, that would be a much better scenario for Thai companies, Thai farmers, and Thai startups and SME. To integrate into the global value chain.
All right. Thank you for joining me in this program, Dr. ไกรจักร
Thank you very much for having me.
The foreign affairs that matter. Special guests from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This is the MFA updates.
Thank you very much, Dr. ไกรจักร for more detail about Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership or RCEP agreement. We've come to the end of the show, and don't forget to follow the YouTube channel MFA Thailand and Facebook page FM88 Radio Thailand English for more updates. I am Kimmy or Kim พนิกนิชาไกรฤกษ์ so see you again. สวัสดีค่ะ
MFA updates.